Harsh times. Harsh times indeed. I don't know how you do it.
You will understand one day. It only takes time. Be safe, friend. Don't you dare go alone.
Hello, we're talking about
Dark Souls.
So there's this little game out there you may or may not have heard of called Dark Souls. It's basically like a flawless masterpiece. It's so good, it even made an entirely new genre named after itself. Seriously, it'll change your life. All joking aside, Dark Souls is a really, really good game. In fact, it's so good, some people even claimed it cured their depression. I affectionately refer to this as the Dark Souls effect. Maybe you've seen the YouTube videos or the articles or the Reddit posts all titled, Dark Souls saved my life, or Dark Souls saved me, or Dark Souls helped me conquer my depression. Stories of people at a low point in their lives that come across a little game called Dark Souls, and somehow the game helps them make a complete 180 and turn their lives around. But how can a video game have such a profound effect on a person? How does a piece of software designed for entertainment actually have a healing effect on the minds of people who engage with it? Let's take a closer look at the Dark Souls effect and how art heals people.
So there's this universal experience that every human being goes through where a piece of art deeply affects them. These experiences can range from intensity, from being just a powerful feeling you get in the moment, to being an immensely transformative experience that forever changes who you are and how you see the world at the very core of your being. I'm sure as I'm describing this, memories are coming to you of times that you engaged with an art form, whether that be a movie or a TV show, or maybe even a song, or perhaps maybe even a video game like Dark Souls. And that experience was very powerful. It brought up very strong emotions, and maybe it even transformed and helped you change to be someone new, someone better. So we know that art can have this very powerful impact on us internally. But what exactly is going on when that happens? What makes art heal us as individuals? Well, what we know about psychology, all the way back from Carl Jung, we know that the mind is made of many, many, many layers, and the deeper you go, the more unconscious it gets. For something to be unconscious means that you're not aware that it's going on.
For Jung, the unconscious was something which was objective. It had structures that were not created by your ego. In other words, if you really got to studying the psyche, you would be studying patterns and structures and entities which were not created by your ego, which didn't come out of your personal experience, which were inborn, which were innate potentials in your psyche, and which manifest themselves in some way in your psychological functioning.
Jung famously said, modern man is blind to the fact that, with all his rationality and efficiency, he is possessed by powers beyond his control. The gods and demons have not disappeared at all, they have merely got new names. The Apostle Paul once wrote, in a moment of introspection, I do not understand my own actions, for I do not do what I want, but I do the very thing I hate. I can will what is right, but I cannot do it. What Jung called complexes are the things responsible for this universal human experience, when we do not do what we want and do the very thing we hate. When a complex is triggered, it can feel like we're in the grip of a demon, a force stronger than our own will, a feeling of helplessness as we watch ourselves become the powerless victim of an unconscious compulsion. Our free will is bumped out of the driver's seat and something else takes over. Something autonomous. So all the time there are all of these different things running in the background, and all of these different voices can conflict and cause chaos outside of your own awareness, but still within your own mind. And art is basically how humans take all the complex stuff going on deep down in our unconscious minds and turn those things into metaphors and symbols which our conscious minds can digest.
Images are of key importance. In other words, talking these things to death will not put you in touch with the energy. It is what they used to call magic. In other words, if you really want to access these energies, go to the Art Institute and look at images. If you will look carefully at art history, you'll find images which evoke these patterns. And it's a lot quicker to look at images. So images are important. And it's amazing that's gotten lost, because for most of human history, 99, 44, 100% of human history, they knew that you worked with imagos, that it was images that were powerful.
Jung would actually treat his patients by helping them relate to the struggles and stories of historical figures, mythological figures, and even fictional characters. And he found that this practice had an incredible effect at helping people overcome their inner demons and complexes. He didn't really discover this technique as much as he shined a light on how humans have been doing this in one way or another throughout all of history. Jung and his associates wrote an entire book about this called Man and His Symbols, if this topic interests you. But the bottom line is, using art to heal your inner wounds is a natural and universal part of being human. So when we engage with powerful art, we are simultaneously processing all of the stuff that's stuck deep, deep down in the deepest layers of our mind, bringing those up into the conscious surface layers of our mind, where we can play around with them and actually do something with all that stuff. And art is really good at doing this. It's really good at being able to express the unexpressible stuff. There's stuff that goes on deep inside of each and every one of us that is sometimes almost impossible to put into words and can only be expressed through these creative mediums. And when we see those things depicted in front of us in powerful artistic expression, it resonates deep inside of us. You immediately feel seen and validated, like what you're watching or what you're witnessing is somehow speaking directly to you, speaking directly to the deepest parts of who you are. And when you experience art that's able to speak that deeply, you learn the most powerful lessons. So now that we know a little about why art heals us and how art heals us, let's apply it to Dark Souls. It's no secret that Dark Souls is a really good metaphor for battling inner demons, particularly depression. When a person is fighting a really tough mental battle like depression, quite literally everything is harder to do. You feel like you're living life on hard mode. It can take a tremendous amount of effort for some people just to get out of bed, let alone deal with the rest of life's struggles and challenges. Every day feels like you're fighting a losing battle. If there's one thing everybody knows about Dark Souls, it's hard. So when a person who's living like this comes across Dark Souls, they immediately see a reflection of their own lived experience in the punishing difficulty and bleak narrative. A beaten down and struggling person will immediately identify with the beaten down and struggling protagonist and project their own mental battle onto the fantasy battles taking place in the game. As above, so below. Because of this identification, the game feels personal, and it really sucks you in, and this is where the magic happens. Players who get really pulled in and stick around long enough inevitably get better and better at it until eventually they have their first taste of victory. A boss that has given you so much trouble, which you've spent hours and hours dying to over and over, is suddenly sitting at a sliver of health left. One more hit and you've done it. Maybe you choke, but you've proven to yourself that it's possible. A couple more attempts and it's done. You've won. The rush of victory is intoxicating, and the genuine satisfaction is too much to deny. But, most importantly, you remember your own real-life struggles, which this game has been mirroring so well. Maybe you can succeed. Maybe if you just keep trying and failing and trying and failing and trying and failing, eventually you'll get your own real-life bosses down to a sliver of health, and maybe, just maybe, you'll eventually succeed. The grit and determination and perseverance that Dark Souls helps you develop in-game inevitably spills over into real life. As below, so above.
So now we reach the inevitable portion of the video where I tell you how Dark Souls saved me and how Dark Souls changed my life personally. And I gotta say that there are definitely some major life lessons that I learned from playing Dark Souls. So I talked a lot about complexes and about how Carl Jung basically defined what inner demons are. So let me tell you a little bit about my own complexes and my own inner demons that have controlled a lot of my life. So the first one would definitely have to be fear of failure. I've spent most of my life just feeling like I can't cope with failure for some reason. I've spent so much time wanting to do things but never having enough courage to try because I'm just worried that I'll fail at it, and feeling like if I do fail that for some reason I just won't be able to cope with it. So playing Dark Souls and dying over and over and over ad nauseum definitely reduced the power of that complex. It definitely reduced the power of the hold that had over me, that fear of failure. Failure still hurts, right? I mean, and I think that's failure is always going to hurt. That's always going to be the case. But I learned that each failure is just one more step towards inevitable victory. I don't remember who said it or exactly where this comes from or who said it first, but I've kind of made this like a personal mantra in my life that if I have to fail 1,000 times before I can be successful, then let me fail faster. Right? If I have to try to fight Ornstein and Smo 1,000 times before I finally beat them, then let me fail faster. Let me die faster, you know? Let me get all of those failures out of the way. And so I've kind of made that like a personal mantra in my life, and it's definitely because of Dark Souls, because of how much the game forces you to fail and how often you die and how much you have to try over and over and over again until you finally succeed and it finally clicks. Fail faster. If you have to fail 1,000 times before you can succeed, fail faster. The next complex would definitely have to be learned helplessness. As a child, when you're told something enough times, you start to believe it. Like a lot of people in my childhood had me thinking I can't do anything right. So I would stop trying to do anything on my own. As an adult, it turned into always seeking approval from others. And it turned into sort of always doubting myself and feeling like I couldn't do things on my own without getting somebody's stamp of approval, you know. And so in a lot of ways, playing Dark Souls really kind of helped me take back my personal autonomy. This might come across as a little egotistical to say, but it gave me this feeling of immense pride and satisfaction, knowing that I was able to do something hard that not a lot of my friends or family or immediate circle were able to do or even willing to do, like Dark Souls. Like, it just fills me with this immense sense of pride and like self-assurance, which is a direct antidote to that learned helplessness. Like, I can do hard things, you know? Like, I have grit and determination, and it spilled over into other facets of life, you know? Like, I'm not helpless. I can do hard things. And it really kind of gave me permission to stop needing the approval of others and to stop doubting myself all the time and to just kind of go for it, you know, and do things without needing someone else's stamp of approval or needing someone else to tell me that I was doing okay or that I was doing it right. The next complex that I want to talk about, the next inner demon, would have to be the inability to cope with setbacks. That Dark Souls really, really helped me with that. You know, I feel like most of my life I've always given up on things as soon as one thing goes wrong and treating it like it's the end of the world. You know, like, just I can't cope. I just can't cope with setbacks. So I ended up with lots of things that I started but never finished because I quit right when it got hard, or I quit right as soon as one thing went wrong, you know. And so I really did have this huge collection of things that I wanted to do, that I tried, that I started doing, but I ended up quitting or abandoning, because as soon as it would get hard, I would just quit, or as soon as something would start to go wrong, or I would run into setbacks, I would abandon it. And I can admit that I definitely rage quit many times in Dark Souls when I lost a ton of souls because I couldn't make it back to my bloodstain. You know, that's a major setback. And but when you do that enough times, you rage quit and you come back a week later and you try it again. When you do that enough times, eventually you learn to be okay with it. And then that spills over into other areas of your life, and you learn to be okay with setbacks in other areas of life and persevere even when things aren't going right or major obstacles get in your way that prevent you from going forward and you have these big setbacks. In conclusion, art heals us and makes us grow through a psychological process that not many people understand all that well, and video games don't always get the recognition they deserve as an art form capable of changing hearts and minds. So when a game like Dark Souls comes along that does affect a lot of people in positive ways, it's almost seen as this miraculous phenomenon. I mean, it kind of is a miraculous phenomenon, but the reality is that there were and always have been impactful and life-changing video games before Dark Souls came along. And on a broader note, we have always been surrounded by impactful and life-changing art for all of human history. My hope is that more people will open their eyes to the incredible healing experiences of good art all around us, including video games. So to that I say, consume more art, watch more movies, listen to more music, read more books, and play more games. You never know where the next Dark Souls effect will come from. Berserk. If you haven't read Berserk, it's Berserk for you. Okay, bye.